Hi, I'm Bart Herbison, Executive Director of the Nashville Songwriters Association, and this week, the story behind the song for the Tennessean and Tennessean.com, Riding with Private Malone, Mr. Wood Newton. It's got a realness to it. I'll never forget the first time I heard it, but you and Tom Shepard wrote it. Was that the first time you two ever wrote together?
It was.
And I think that was a magic day. So describe the story behind this song.
Well, I wish I could say we got it in 15 or 30 minutes, but it really was one that took more than one get together. But from the word go, and by the way, I'd already thought I'd finished the album on David Ball.
Right.
And it got delayed because we were working out the details of who was going to distribute it and what label, or whether we were going to do our own label and that type of thing. So in the meantime, we wrote this song, and then we I would play and sing background with David Ball on the Opry, Grand Ole Opry, and then we did this. Matthew Gillen had a show called Opry Star Spotlight that was on afterwards, and Tom Shepard was one of his favorite new young songwriters. So it was out there in the Opryland Hotel, and it was kind of real loose, fun, spontaneous type of thing. So that's where I met Tom Shepard. And I just thought, he has got so much energy. He's such a great young guy, and I love his singing and everything. Something told me that I should get together, try to write with him, and so I was the one that instigated writing with him. And he had actually had the song, and he'd tried to get a couple other people to write it with him, and nobody wanted to touch it.
I bet they wish they had now.
Well, so he is a big classic car nut, and he had been on the internet, and he had found this website about a guy that had a Corvette. In fact, the '66 Corvette had its own website. A guy dedicated his own website. But he said that we used that story about the buttons on the radio, but it picked up that oldie show, especially late at night. He said every time he got in the car, it would go back to an oldie station, and it wasn't the one he dialed in,
Well, it had been Private Malone's car, and in the song, the new owner, basically, there's no way he's going to have an accident. He can't survive, but he's riding with Private Malone.
Yeah. Well, when the owner, the first thing that got me was when he opened up the glove box, and that's when he found the note. And the date was 1966, and this is what he wrote. He said, "My name is Private," and he said, "And if you're reading this, I didn't make it home." So the guy, it just showed the bravery of those guys that are going off to fight. They know they may not come back.
Well, and I'll tell you, it was a real honor to our military, and I have a special intersection with this song with you. I heard it before the record came out, and you and I were on a Nashville Songwriters Association trip to Washington to do some copyright advocacy. And I said, "Wood, get in the car." And before we had a meeting, we went to the Vietnam Wall and described that experience.
Well, first of all, that was, regardless of whether you knew anybody, but everybody knows somebody whose name is on that wall. And out of my class of 28 people, Sammy Evans, his name is on the wall. And so just that alone was emotional. One name that's not on there is Jeff Davis Newton, my cousin, who had a Corvette, and he went to Vietnam. And I saw him on the day he got back, and he had been awarded 2 Silver Stars because he was in a close combat shootout, and he was just kind of saying, "I don't know how I made it." And he got killed in his Corvette that night, on the very night he got back.
That's
so
there's, in the song to you.
Yeah,
and you, there's a directory there, and you looked for the name in the song.
Yeah, I was curious to see if there just happened to be a Andrew Malone by any chance. There was not, and I'm glad there wasn't, but there were about 13 Malones. And so we did a rubbing when I did where you use a pencil on a piece of paper and rub the name, and we rubbed an Andrew and a Malone, and that was part of the package we sent out with the single.
Well, it set a tone, Wood. You and I, the rest of the day, it was very sober but very introspective, and I think even for you, the author of the song, it meant more after that. We went and played it for many members of Congress. We ran into some military veterans there.
Yeah.
And played it, and the reaction was stunning. That song really helped resurrect David Ball's career.
It did in mine, not to mention mine and Tom's. They say it's a 7-year town, and Tom had gotten a cut or two before, but it's his first real single. So, gosh, it's life-changing when something like that comes along and really, gives you
And for a quasi-independent record without millions and millions in promotion money, it just hit a chord with America.
It did.
And the disc jockeys and the program directors, and it went straight up the charts, and it stayed there a while.
By the way, I've got to mention Carl P. Mayfield, longtime Nashville Hall of Fame
Who, by the way, has just been inducted into the Tennessee Radio Hall of Fame.
Well, and well-deserved, and he was one of my first friends in Nashville, but I had gone to his daughter's graduation. He said, "What are you up to?" I said, "Well, I just happen to have a CD. Here's what I've been doing." And I gave him the demo of David Ball singing the guitar vocal of the song. Well, he's a Vietnam vet himself, and he played that on his morning KDF radio show, and he said the phones lit up. The only thing that had matched that before was Murder on Music Row, which I love too. Great story.
But back to the song real quickly. You said this was over several sessions, because I know you've written songs that were mega hits and they just came out. But talk about crafting it, you and Tom.
Well, first of all, we kind of wrote it just to 3 chords, and it went on. It was a story. It kind of we broke some rules because it's the first time the chorus comes around, it's from the point of view of the note, from the voice of the guy that owned the car. Then the next time the other choruses change a little bit, so that's sort of like a rule you don't normally want to break. You want to keep your chorus the same most of the time, makes it simpler. And the song ended up being 4 minutes and 40 seconds long, and it's like, that's another rule. If you want to hit, you keep it around 3 minutes, 45 or something like that. So I know how to craft a song, but it just went on. But as we wrote the song, it just somehow, this particular story was our imagination. But for real, it had happened. Those urban legends of those classic hot cars, it happened all over America.
Well, am I right? Because this may be one of the few songs this ever happened with. A lot of great songs, a lot of your great songs you mentioned from Arkansas are from very personal experience. But you crafted a character, and as you continued writing it, it did become real and personal, and the character took over and helped. And the character you created helped write the final version of that song.
It did, and there's still some mystery about it. And by the way, the even the structure of it goes. It goes into a minor. We got most of the lyrics, and then it was all so much the same, just that 3-chord thing. And then we went up, and then it just kind of evolved and started bringing in those 2 minors and 3 minor. I know that's techno speech, but the minor chords and it
but
just
in the lyrics, the character kind of at the end of your sessions kind of helped you
it
write
did,
the song.
and we really discussed about that. Some people got on, and I can't believe you crashed it and burned it. It's like, well, we talked about that. We could have had him just go by and meet a pretty girl,
Well, it wasn't about the car; it was about the spirit in the car.
Yeah.
So, final question. I've been with you and seen this happen. And there have been some remarkable stories from people you've heard from about that song.
Oh, right. There is, on Facebook, there is a Writing with Private Malone website that people are just such fans of it. And it was the first song where I was plugged in because I was the producer and involved with the record label. So it was the first song of mine where we had emails of people that were writing in. And some of them were from one of them, I remember, I'm an 80-year-old World War II veteran. I had to pull off to the side of the road. Right. This song, got me. I said, man, when that happens, that's what happened to me when I heard, by the time I get to Phoenix, or songs like that, So what an honor that is. And you said the same thing happened to you. So
It's that powerful. I think it's time to hear a verse and chorus.
All right.
This week for the Tennessean, the story behind the song, Wood Newton, writing to Private Malone.
I opened up the glove box and that's when I found the note. Date was 1966 and this is what he wrote. He said, my name is Private Andrew Malone, and if you're reading this, then I didn't make it home. But for every dream that shatters, another one comes true. This car was once a dream of mine, now it belongs to you. And though you may take her and make her your own, you'll always be riding with Private Malone.